Hey guys, today we're doing predictions for UFC 206, Holloway versus Pettis. I'm actually really looking forward to this event. There are a lot of good matchups, a lot of really good fighters on this card, but I don't think it's worthy of being on pay-per-view. This is the one that everyone's down on, and everyone's saying it's not going to sell. And yeah, I kind of agree. It's a really weak pay per view. The interim title fight, or the interim title that they just created for the main event is pretty much meaningless. But there are a lot of great fights here, and especially after the Albany fight card taking place the night before this, that makes this card that much more appealing. So, I think it's a good card. Follow me on Twitter. My link's in the description at MMA Breakdown 0. Check out my predictions for Fight Night Albany. Those have been filmed already, so those will be linked in the description. And I will do a video recapping my picks for the last several events. I think everyone since UFC 205, showing you my picks, the results of them for all of those events. I'm currently 470 going into Fight Night Albany for the year on UFC Fantasy. And I'll keep you updated on my picks for the rest of the year. Hopefully I can finish within the top 500. That's my goal. That would make it 3 years in a row that I've done that. So that's what I'm gunning for, and hopefully I can get there. But UFC 206, first fight at flyweight, Zach Makovsky versus Dustin Ortiz. I think both of these guys match up pretty similarly, both boxer wrestlers, but Makovsky I think is more technical, definitely with his striking, and I think slightly more technical wrestler, and that's why I'm going to take him here, the technical edge. Against John Dodson, who is a Dodson, coming off of a long layoff and probably not 100% health-wise, but Makovsky showed a good jab and was landing it in that fight, and probably deserved to win at least 2 of those 3 rounds. And his wrestling, you saw in his last fight against Benavidez, he hit several takedowns in that fight. Wasn't able to do anything with them, couldn't keep Benavidez down, but hit some nice takedowns. He is a very patient fighter, though. He is very low output. He is not aggressive, and I think that could be his undoing in this fight if he ends up losing it, because Dustin Ortiz, he makes it a dog fight. He is extremely scrappy on the feet, but doesn't have that technique that Makovsky has. In his fight with Benavidez, he was hanging with them on the feet, getting outstruck, getting outlanded, but he was there for 3 rounds. And he's a very aggressive wrestler, more of a submission threat, more of a threat to finish by ground and pound. When he does get guys down, he's able to dominate with his wrestling. But again, I feel that Makovsky has the more technical takedowns, times his takedowns better. And Ortiz, in a couple of fights where he used his wrestling, he wasn't able to really dominate or hold guys down, like against Ray Borg. Ray Borg was able to threaten with back takes several times in that fight, and Justin Scoggins, all of the scrambles were really back and forth. Scoggins almost had him in an armbar. So with guys who could scramble with Ortiz, he wasn't extremely dominant, wasn't really able to establish a dominant position on the ground, even though he is a strong wrestler. So that's what I see working for Makovsky here. I think he's not going to get out-wrestled by Ortiz. I think he has the more technical wrestling to at least neutralize the grappling game, and then on the feet, he just has the cleaner jab and cleaner striking, and Ortiz has really struggled with that in his last 2 fights against Wilson Heiss and Juicy Formiga, who Makovsky also has a loss to, but I think this matchup does favor Makovsky, so I'm going with him to win a decision. All right, a lightweight, Jason Saggo versus Rustam Khabilov. This is an interesting fight. Both guys are coming off of wins against, what's his name? I'm blanking on it. Leandro Silva. Both these guys coming off of a win over him. And Jason Saggo, he overperformed, turned it up at just the right time to steal that win, whereas Khabilov was the guy who was expected to win and almost lost the fight. So kind of a weird dynamic there with how both guys did against the same opponent. But I think that this matchup favors Khabilov more, and I don't think Saggo is going to be able to do the same things that he did against Silva to win against Khabilov. In that fight, Saggo kind of surprisingly was able to get some good positions on the ground, take the back. Was just the more aggressive and better grappler, and then on the feet in that third round just decided to come forward and throw his hands, and Silva's one of these extremely low output guys and is always content to sit back, and that allowed Saggo to just by turning up the pace was able to steal that round and the fight. But I don't think he can out-grapple Khabilov. Khabilov can be out-wrestled and out-grappled. He was really out-wrestled pretty badly by Adriano Martins. I think that was kind of a one-off fight, though, for him. Against Chris Wade, a strong wrestler, Khabilov dominated him. But on the feet, I think that's where Saggo really will struggle. He really doesn't have much of a striking game at all, and all of his fights before the Silva fight, he almost exclusively grappled. And Khabilov, he's not a very dangerous striker, and maybe not a very deep striker. He does push a high pace. He did have that wheel kick they landed on Masvidal, so I think he has more techniques on the feet, has those unorthodox strikes, so I like him to outstrike Saggo, possibly hurt him, but I think Khabilov's just going to kind of ragdoll him, be the better wrestler, and I don't think Saggo will have anything for him on the feet, so I like Khabilov to win a decision here. A lightweight, John Makdessi versus Lando Vanata. Really excited to see Lando Vanata again after that awesome performance that he had against Tony Ferguson in his debut. I think we should all be wary of thinking that a guy who came in on short notice against one of the most elite fighters in the UFC and overperformed and had a really competitive fight, thinking that because of that he's going to have a lot of future success in the UFC and become a top level fighter. It doesn't always work out that way. Just to make an analogy, Clay Collard in his debut fought Max Holloway on short notice, and it was a very competitive fight where he had Holloway in some really bad spots and ended up not even being able to really hold his spot in the company. I don't know if he's cut or not, but just want to make that point that it's not always indicative of future success when a guy is able to overperform against an elite fighter in their debut fight on short notice. But I do think that given the styles matchup, Lando Vanata should be able to win, get the win here over John Makdessi. I think he's going to knock him out. Makdessi, since that Shane Campbell knockout, and in that fight was not looking good before the knockout. He has just not done well since that fight. Cerrone really put a beating on him, broke his jaw, and his last fight against Mehdi Baghdad, is doing well. He's a high volume, pretty technical kickboxer, but he's low power, and Baghdad was able to hurt him with one shot late in the fight. So Makdessi is hittable. He's easily hurt, and Vanata, we know, is dangerous. Has a really unorthodox style of striking. Almost got Tony Ferguson out there, so I think he's definitely going to be able to connect on Makdessi. I think that dynamism and creativity is going to overwhelm Makdessi, catch him off guard, and I think the length. Vanata fights long. Those spinning kicks, those kinds of techniques, I think are going to give Makdessi trouble. He's not going to be able to close the distance. The length of Medeiros, gave Makdessi some trouble, even though Makdessi probably deserved to win that fight. But yeah, I think Vanata should be the favorite here and is going to get that knockout early. I think I'm going to take him by first round knockout. Yeah. At bantamweight, Mitch Gagnon versus Matthew Lopez. This is a pretty exciting matchup. I'm going to take Mitch Gagnon. I think he's just the more complete fighter. He's a dangerous striker, power striker. Really hunts for the knockout. Not really a technical striker, doesn't have a jab, loads up on all his shots, but he is dangerous, he is powerful, and he's a pretty aggressive and a pretty powerful submission fighter. He has a crushing guillotine that he caught Alex Caceres with, and gave Brian Caraway a really tough fight and survived on the ground with him, which is where Matthew Lopez is strong. Caraway submitted Gagnon, but he survived, I think, into the third round and put a lot of damage on Caraway. But Matthew Lopez seemed to be a great scrambler, had Hani Yahya in some bad positions, was threatening submissions himself, and was competing really well with him on the ground. They were pretty even, and Yahya just kind of slowly took over and eventually got the submission that finished the fight. But I thought Matthew Lopez competed very well. But yeah, Gagnon is a really physical fighter, really gets to work early, and that kind of aggression and pressure is usually a style that wins out. So not having seen more of Lopez's game, I'm going to assume that Gagnon has that power advantage. We'll be putting the pressure on him, beating him to the punch, and probably hurt him on the feet and maybe submit him. So I'm going to go with Gagnon. And his only losses in the UFC, I believe, are to Caraway and Henan Barao, and both fights were fairly competitive. So Gagnon hasn't been too active, but I still think is a really solid fighter. All right, at women's strawweight, Valerie Letourneau versus Viviane Pereira. Gonna have to skip over this one. Pereira's a newcomer. I don't know her. Valerie Letourneau, I think, is a really inconsistent fighter. She gave Joanna Jędrzejczyk one of her toughest fights, and at that point, other than the first Claudia Gadelha fight, that was Jędrzejczyk's toughest fight in the UFC. Definitely took at least, I thought, a round off of her. Was doing well, striking from distance. Has a fairly technical kickboxing game, and is not bad on the ground, but she doesn't really take her opponents to the ground. Her submission went over Jessica Rakoczy. She was put on her back, and that ground game was nowhere to be seen really against Calderwood. or even much against Jędrzejczyk other than a kind of awkward takedown she got in the first round. But yeah, against Calderwood, a fighter who fought at a higher pace and put more pressure on her than some of her previous opponents. She was connecting on her and hurting her, and put her out with, I think it was a spinning back fist that hurt her, and she just did not look good in that fight. So I think Letourneau, while she is skilled and has a technical kickboxing game against opponents who give her that time to work and aren't pressuring her. While she has that, she is not good against more aggressive fighters who can get in her face and make it more of a brawl. All right, next fight at lightweight, Olivier Aubin-Mercier versus Drew Dober. This is a pretty intriguing matchup. Aubin-Mercier should be the more technical striker, although he's pretty low output and he's not really dangerous at all with his striking. And he pretty much has a kick-based striking attack, whereas Drew Dober is a well-rounded kickboxer, mixes his strikes and kicks together well, has power, showed that in his last fight against Jason Gonzalez, and is a pretty solid wrestler and grappler, showed that against Scott Holtzman, was the slightly better takedown artist in that fight, was able to hold top position against Holtzman enough to get the win. I think that Dober is going to be more dangerous on the feet, and Olivier Aubin-Mercier, well, he's made some improvements and seems to be implementing that kind of outside kicking game that a lot of grapplers seem to use. While he's been able to implement that better over his last few fights, his chin is still bad and he is still easy to hurt. I mean, really low-level guys have dropped him, like David Machad, Tybalt Goody in his last fight. He can be hit. He's easy to hurt. The only guy who was really able to use his grappling against to really nullify was what was the guy's name? Tony. The guy who got submitted by Abel Trujillo. I can't remember his name. But that was a dangerous striker who Aubin-Mercier was able to take down and completely avoid the power game of. But I don't think he's going to do that to Drew Dober. I think Dober has good enough takedown defense and good enough takedowns himself to not get out grappled by the guy who probably should have the pure grappling advantage in Aubin-Mercier, who does have that judo background, but isn't really that assertive with it. Doesn't really press the takedowns, and does have submissions when he gets guys there, but it's been against weak competition like Jake Lindsay and I can't remember, I think submitted someone else. But yeah, Dober's more well-rounded and really on the feet. That's where I think he'll have success against Aubin-Mercier. So I'm going to take Dober, but he's really had his struggles getting submitted by Escudero off of a slip in the first round. I thought was pretty weird. But other than that, he's been pretty solid. Had a really tough fight with Nick Hine. He was in there till the end and coming on strong late. So Dober's been solid. He's been improving. Just a more complete fighter and should have the better striking game. So I think he could get that TKO, but I think Aubin-Mercier will probably be able to get it to the ground and make it somewhat competitive. But so I'm going to take Dober by decision. All right, at light heavyweight, Nikita Krylov versus Misha Cirkunov. I've pretty foolishly picked against Krylov in several of his last few fights. But, you've got to hand it to him. The guy's putting together a really dangerous, aggressive, high output kickboxing game. He has power in his hands, power in his legs, and he's really aggressive with submissions. But I think that's going to be his undoing here. Cirkunov, I think, will finally be that guy to weather that storm, be patient and really expose the technical holes in Krylov's game. Cirkunov is a very technical submission artist. I feel like in Ion Kutalaba, he beat a similar opponent to Krylov. A really heavy-handed striker who comes forward. He survived that test, was able to get it to the ground and submitted him. And Krylov's going to be even more reckless than that, coming forward as much as he does and really diving on sometimes low percentage submissions. And we already saw that that cost him against Ovince St. Preux, where he showed a lack of fight IQ. I think coming forward as much as he does, exposing himself, he's going to allow Cirkunov to clinch with him, drag him down, and submit him. So I'm going to take Cirkunov. I'm going to say by first round submission because Krylov is extremely aggressive. I think Cirkunov is not going to want to hang out on the feet with him. He's going to be looking for that clinch. And on the mat, he should be the much higher fight IQ fighter and a lot more technical grappler and submission artist. So I like Cirkunov to get the submission. All right. Welterweight, Jordan Meehan versus Emil Weber-Meek. I've only seen Meek's fight against Husamar Palhares. I'm not going to make a pick here for this fight because, I don't do that for guys making their debut. But I'm intrigued by Emil Weber-Meek. I like the fact that he's Norwegian. I like the fact that he was the fighter to finally give Husamar Palhares his comeuppance. And I like the hair. I like the beard. I like his style. I like that hammer that he holds. So I'm excited to see him in the UFC. Seems to be a really jacked, strong, explosive dude. Jordan Meehan is a pretty technical striker with big power. We saw that in the Mike Pyle fight. And we saw in the Thiago Alves fight where he got off to a really strong start. He's a pretty fluid kickboxer, but when guys are able to hang in there with him and make it a dogfight, he goes down. I don't want to say easily. Well, he did in the Alves fight, but I don't think he's really. He has the will or the style, the attitude to win a dogfight. Matt Brown outlasted him and was able to finish him after being hurt in that fight. And Thiago Alves, Meehan looked like he was going to run away with it, and it just took one body kick from Alves to put him down. So I'm wary of Jordan Meehan. I do recognize the skills. He has power. And retiring at such a young age and coming back, that's kind of a weird thing. We don't really see that at all too much. But I feel like if guys who have suffered, brutal knockouts like Nate Marquardt and these kinds of guys can, make a bit of a resurgence at a late age, I think a young guy like Meehan could. But I don't know. I'm definitely going to have to listen to some other people's analysis to make my pick for this fight. All right. At middleweight, Tim Kennedy versus Kelvin Gastelum. I was really looking forward to that original matchup of Kennedy and Rashad Evans that was supposed to happen at 205. I picked Kennedy to win that fight. I'm not going to pick him here to win against Gastelum. Gastelum, for all of his weight cutting issues, I think is still a pretty solid fighter. And I think here he's just going to have the deeper fundamental boxing game than Kennedy. Kennedy has kind of weird power that he's able to catch guys off guard with, like in the Yoel Romero fight, in the Rafael Natal fight. But Gastelum's much more of a solid combination boxer, although he doesn't have that kind of surprise, spontaneous power that Kennedy does. And wrestling, while Kennedy is a relentless wrestler and very scrappy and just a real gritty, pest of a wrestler, I don't see him out wrestling Gastelum, who I think again is the more technically deep wrestling game, has more technical takedowns, and I think will just have enough size to fend off those takedowns, which Bisping couldn't do, and even Roger Gracie kind of succumbed to. So I like Gastelum here. I think he's able to stuff the takedown attempts of Kennedy, keep it on the feet, and from there I think he should just outpoint him with better combination fundamental boxing. So I like Gastelum for a decision. All right. Next up, a featherweight, Cub Swanson versus Do Ho Choi. Another fantastic matchup. Should be a very exciting fight. A couple years ago, I don't think anyone would have, or very few guys at least, would have beat Cub Swanson at his own game. Brawling with him and head hunting, which is what Choi's going to do here. But I think ever since that Edgar loss, Swanson has just lost a step. He's seemed to not have as much confidence. He looked a little chinny in the Holloway fight. Holloway shots really seemed to stagger him, which is something we didn't really see with him before. And then while he seemed to be focusing more on the technical side of his game in that Cochran Diaz fight, I thought that was a pretty telling performance of Swanson, where Swanson's confidence and his willingness to engage was at that point. Cochran Diaz is not a dangerous striker. He's a pretty low output striker, and he was still able to connect cleanly on Swanson a few times. And Swanson, other than a few momentary bursts of offense, he really didn't have that confidence and have that all-out aggressive, high-pace offense that he had shown earlier in his career, which was really a staple of his game. And then against Kawajiri, I think it was more of a offensively proactive performance from him, but he still put on his back a few times in that fight, struggled with the grappling a bit, and I just don't think Swanson is where he was before that Edgar loss. So I'm going to take Choi here, who has been on a roll. He has huge power. I think will have the power edge over Swanson, and his strikes are laser accurate. They're almost all straight punches. Swanson's much more of a looping striker, lunging, winging strikes, whereas Choi really sits down and really has those laser accurate straight punches and big power. And with Swanson being a little chinny, struggling with the confidence in his hands, and just not being as willing to engage in a brawl as he used to be, I think that Choi is going to connect at some point and put him out. I think Swanson's biggest advantage will actually be on the ground if he decides to focus on the takedowns. And he has kind of a unique, unorthodox judo game that we don't really see from a lot of fighters, but he has pretty good judo throws, and that scenario where Choi's been untested, if he can put him on his back and really try to hold position, I think that he could have some success there. But I don't expect him to be able to do that, and I think he is going to try to strike with Choi, but be hesitant at the same time, and Choi's going to capitalize and knock him out. All right. Welterweight, the co-main event, Donald Cerrone versus Matt Brown. I think this is a horrible matchup for Matt Brown, and I'm going to take Donald Cerrone by a first-round knockout. Matt Brown is a slow starter. He has been easier and easier to hurt over the last couple of fights. Tim Means cracked him. Jake Ellenberger dropped him right off the bat. And Cerrone's historically has been a slow starter, but since coming to welterweight has not been a slow starter, and he has just looked amazing. He looks like a much more offensively, he seems to have much more confidence in his hands and lets his hands go and throws more combinations than he used to at lightweight. That finishing combination that he had on Story was awesome. He had a body shot in there, and then he came up top with a head kick. He has just been looking fantastic. He has the length advantage over Brown, the power advantage, and that chin of Brown, like I said, he's been guys can hurt him, and I think Cerrone's going to connect early in the fight, crack Brown and put him out. Brown, I certainly don't think will be the guy to take down and out wrestle Cerrone. I mean, Story couldn't do it, but he does have kind of an underrated trip takedown game. But Cerrone is one of the most underrated grapplers and submission threats in the UFC. He's a monster off of his back. I think he would submit Brown if Brown did try to put him on his back. So I like Cerrone really big here. I'm going to take him by first round knockout. And also, Brown is dangerous, but Cerrone, survived against guys like Edson Barboza, Eddie Alvarez. I think guys with a lot more power than Brown, more dangerous strikers. So I don't think Brown, can hurt him really. So I like Cerrone to get him out of there in the first round. All right, and then the main event at featherweight, Max Holloway versus Anthony Pettis. I am taking Max Holloway. I don't think there's any way that Pettis can win this fight. For one thing, Holloway is just so confident. It really translates into his hands, into his striking. He really lets his hands go. He's very high volume. He's very technical. Pretty defensive. Did get tagged by Lamas on a few occasions, but wasn't seriously hurt, and just pretty much teed off on Lamas for that entire fight. And he can strike technically in a more patient kind of fight like he did against Swanson. Really pick his shots from the outside and keep opponents outside, which is something I don't think Pettis has. And just Pettis' technical striking has really been exposed over his last couple of fights, especially against guys like Rafael Dos Anjos, Edson Barboza. He seemed really confused and just not able to get into a rhythm or really land anything. Barboza had the much more technically deep striking game, and I just see Max Holloway as like a much more extreme version of Edson Barboza, a really technical striker who throws a lot more and has more fight-ending power. So I really like Holloway here. I think the fact that this is a 5-round fight that makes it more likely that Holloway will get the finish because Pettis is going to be hit a lot. And I just think he's kind of shell-shocked from those beatings, that beating he took from Rafael dos Anjos, and then a fight where he was roughed up a bit by Eddie Alvarez. And then his fight against Oliveira, it was good. It was nice. That's a serious win at featherweight, especially for his first fight. But Oliveira is a guy who's easily broken, not a very mentally strong fighter, and not a guy with a technical striking game, at least nowhere near the level of Holloway. So I like Holloway big. Think he's going to go after him early. He's going to have a speed advantage, a power advantage. I think Pettis should have the grappling advantage, though, but Holloway's takedown defense has been pretty good. His ability to get back to his feet is good. But Pettis is a solid wrestler. He did get his back taken by Oliveira several times, but ended up getting the choke. I think that's an area where he could have some success against Holloway. But yeah, Holloway I expect to be the much more confident fighter, and Pettis I think might come out of the gate, firing on all cylinders and really trying to go toe to toe with Holloway. I think as he gets hit, as the fight drags out to the second, third, later rounds, Holloway is going to have that more diverse arsenal to go to, and kind of like in the Barboza fight, Pettis is going to run out of ideas and things to do. So I like Holloway. I'm going to take him, I'm going to say third round submission, I think, or TKO, I think somewhere in the middle of the fight there. Third or fourth round is where he's going to get the finish. So those are my predictions for UFC 206. Thank you for watching, guys. Again, check out my predictions for Fight Night Albany. Follow me on Twitter at MMA Breakdown 0. Check out my picks recap for the last several events, and I'll be back with predictions for the last two events of the year. Fight Night Van Zandt versus Watterson in UFC 207. Nunez versus Rousey. Take care, guys, and I'll see you in the next video. Hopefully I can finish within the top 500. Keep following my vids so you can stay updated on that. And yeah, guys, take care. See you in the next one. Bye.